Hello everybody, it's Skyler here with another episode of TMP the Musical Puppy, episode 2. On the last episode, the first episode, I did the unboxing of the Berkeley Winds E-flat clarinet, and today I'm going to do a review of it. So on the unboxing I covered all of the things that came in the case, so I'm not going to go over that again just to keep this video from going on too long. If you want to see what actually comes in the case and everything, I recommend you go watch the unboxing video. It's just a small section of that, and I do a few comparative things. But sorry about the fan. You're probably going to hear a lot of fan in the background. It's really hot right now, so I don't want to die while doing this, so please, hopefully that's not too distracting. But today I'm going to do an actual review of this instrument. Get a nice closer look. As I said in the unboxing, I'm not using the mouthpiece that came with the instrument. This is Yamaha, I think, yeah, and a Rovner ligature, and Van Doren reeds, and a Van Doren mouthpiece protection piece there. Get a nice good look. I stuck a thumb rest on there, cheap one. The thumb rest that's actually underneath is not too uncomfortable. The instrument is light enough, and this is actually kind of like a soft, like a plasticky instead of the metal ones you see, so it's not terribly uncomfortable. I just decided to stick this on just for the sake of comfort. My computer's making noises in the background, so don't mind that either. But yeah, this is basically what the instrument looks like. It's yeah, I've been playing it for a week or two now since I unboxed it, and it's well, I want to say there's some issues with it. The first issue was that was it this one? Yeah, the pad on this key right here, it actually stuck pretty badly. And if you look closely, you can even kind of see that it looks like the key might be slightly bent. Something's not right about it. It's a little not straight. It came out of the case like this. I didn't do any, I started playing it and it was sticking right away. So I think something's not quite right with this key. The pad's uneven, or the key's slightly bent. But I made a temporary, because if you look at one that you can see pretty easily, this one right here next to it, it doesn't have quite the same unevenness to it. I'm not sure. And it doesn't stick, but I made a temporary solution to this for now by sticking a very tiny piece of Scotch tape onto the pad itself, so that it still seals, but it doesn't stick. Because I don't know, I don't know if there's something, if the pad itself is bad that made it stick. I tried a whole bunch of things, but that seems to work for now. You get a little bit of noise, and you can even see I don't know, something's up with it's flaking or something, so that something's not right with that pad. So eventually that pad will probably have to get replaced, but for a temporary solution, I think the Scotch tape makes it work just fine. It doesn't stick, and I can play it without this staying closed and causing lots of problems. And the other issue is, I don't know if this is necessarily an issue with this instrument in particular, or if it's just a problem with E-flat clarinets in general, but trying to use the left hand C sharp is a little bit problematic. At first I couldn't get it to speak at all, and then I just adjusted this screw a little bit. I don't know what this rod actually does, but when I turned it a little bit, it actually made the note work, period. If I play it right now, I'm not really warmed up. Actually, it's not working now. Did it get moved? Oh yeah, the screw actually got moved a little bit. So if you look, I'll point it out. This screw right here, if it would focus, there we go. This screw is kind of facing this direction, but whenever it faces, well, that's hard to do through the camera viewfinder. Hold on, let me do it, and then I'll bring it back and show you guys where it usually works best. Alright, so now you can see the angle's a little different. The screw is actually facing northeast instead of northwest, and usually that makes it work. See, it came out right away where I was struggling just a moment ago. I don't know what that does, but it makes that left hand C sharp key actually, I don't know, work. I have similar problems with the left hand C key, but like I said, I can get them to work. It's just, I don't know if it's an issue. It's probably this instrument slightly, but I think it's also a matter of E-flat clarinets in general, where they're so small that when you move your hand to function these left hand pinky keys, your hand moves a little bit and it might, you know, not cover these so well. The octave, well, not the, it's, I forget what this is called, but it's not really an octave key, but it's the upper octave key, I guess. I feel like this is a little high. So like, I feel like you really have to push down on it to get it to go down. Like, I feel like, I don't know, like, I feel like the key should be like bent slightly more towards the body of the instrument so that it's just a little bit of a push. Because I feel like sometimes when I activate the upper octave key, my thumb uncovers this tone hole a little bit. Like, if you look on my B flat, the octave key is very, very low. Like, there's very little bit, see, it dips in slightly. There's very little push there. So it's very easy. But I don't know if that's as a complaint I have with the instrument itself. And I don't know if maybe the left-hand pinky keys are just not placed quite so nicely. But in the worst case scenario, the right-hand pinky keys work just fine. I have no problems making those work. They come out just fine for me. So those are my only complaints with the instrument itself in terms of actually functioning properly. Otherwise, the notes come out as they should, not necessarily in tune, but that's the next issue we're going to cover. But those are my only issues with the actual key work, you know, actually working. Okay, so next I'm going to talk a little bit about, like, why an E-flat clarinet. For those maybe not familiar with different clarinets, like, maybe you're curious as to why you would want one of these, similar to what I did in the A clarinet review. I don't know, am I going to move the view for this? Yeah, you know what? Let me just show this real quick so we can get a good look at them. Oh, you know what? I'll just do this. I'll just do like a little side comparison here. So let me lay the E-flat clarinet back there since it's a little smaller. And here's the B-flat clarinet in front. As you can see, there's quite a big size difference here. It's like 2/3 of the length of a B-flat clarinet. And let me kind of lay them back there a little bit, and I'll move the camera so you can kind of see. I'm just going to hold it so make sure they don't roll away and fall onto the floor, because that would be not good. So it's about maybe a little more than 2/3 of the length of a B-flat clarinet. And so it should be fine there now. So the function of an E-flat clarinet is a little different than that of an A clarinet. An A clarinet was basically just to make B-flat clarinet easier to play in certain keys. The E-flat clarinet, however, is a completely different beast. It's a bit analogous to the piccolo in a flute family, and sometimes the E-flat clarinet is referred to as a piccolo clarinet, even though it's not quite so accurate. But sometimes, you know, in the modern orchestra, it's pretty close enough because you don't see too many actual piccolo clarinets, which are a little different. So it's in the key of E-flat, so when you play C, the note E-flat comes out. It comes out a minor third above the note that's written, as opposed to an alto saxophone, which is a major 6, which comes out a major 6 below. So it's the same note, but they're an octave apart. So if you have middle C written, the E-flat above will come out, whereas on an alto saxophone, the E-flat below will come out. So that's the difference there. And the actual, like, tone quality of an E-flat clarinet is so much different. I have some playing samples later that you can quite see the difference. The B-flat clarinet comes out very mellow. Like, if I just pick up the B-flat and play just some notes going up a little bit. Just anything, there wasn't anything in particular there. But if I play the same set of notes, same set of written notes, obviously, on the E-flat, they sound a lot different. basically the same set of notes there, you know, the same fingerings there. Obviously a minor third above, but the actual B-flat clarinet is much mellower and warmer, whereas E-flat clarinet comes out much brighter and a bit, you know, how do I describe it? Like whinier almost. And that's kind of the characteristic that a lot of E-flat clarinet music gets, where it's kind of like, you know, a bit whiny and, you know, a bit more screechy, and it's meant to sound like that because it's kind of, it's just much different noise and much different sound quality. And I mean, granted, my playing doesn't make it sound, you know, it makes it sound worse than it should, but in general, that's the kind of quality you're trying to get out of an E-flat clarinet. It usually plays up, you know, high in the register. You don't see a lot of low notes too often for E-flat clarinet because that's kind of out of its character. So you'll see a lot of music written higher on E-flat clarinet to kind of accentuate those qualities of its tone color. Where, you know, because as the B-flat clarinet goes higher, it sounds a lot pinchier, you know, so you kind of sacrifice some of the warmness as you get higher, and so you get a different tone quality when you're in the same high register. So that's the character of the E-flat clarinet in the orchestra. So one thing I mentioned in the unboxing video is that I was waiting for another piece, and that's an extension piece, and I actually got it. This is it here. The brand is Clark W. Forbes, San Francisco. I will post a link to that in the description to where you can get one of these. And what it does is it goes onto the E-flat clarinet in between the bottom of the body and the bell, and it extends the length of the instrument, but not for, like, you know, making extra notes or anything. You could, I guess, get an E-flat if you were to somehow cover the tone hole there. But the tone hole exists purely to make the low E and the middle B sound a lot better, unless, you know, have like a tone hole to vent it, so to speak. I think that they call it venting, and it's supposed to make the intonation of the instrument in general a lot better. And when I do the actual comparison of how in tune the instrument is, I will go more into detail about that. Another issue I want to talk about with this instrument, and this also applied to the A clarinet as well, is that I especially noticed it when I'm trying to put this on, is that some of the joints are very difficult to get on and off when you first get them. But you can see now I have little trouble maneuvering the bell, and the mouthpiece, or, you know, the barrel and the mouthpiece are equal too. So a good way to fix that I found online, and it did seem to work for me. And you can do this with the A clarinet and any instrument in general, especially ones with, you know, corks, because corks, especially when they're new, they're not quite broken in. They're supposed to be fitted to your instrument, but, you know, when you buy a Chinese-made instrument, you're not really going to get that quality. So one thing you could do without having to actually sand down the corks and risk ruining it is what you do is you put the instrument together, put on a liberal amount of cork grease. And by the way, the cork grease that comes with the E-flat clarinet is actually better than the cork grease that came with the A clarinet. The cork grease that came with the A clarinet basically just turns to mush as soon as you touch it. The cork grease that came with this instrument it's not great, but it doesn't fall apart in your fingers. Like, it'll actually, you know, kind of go on and not be so disgusting. But that's just a side note. And but as I was saying, you put the instrument together, put on extra cork grease so that it doesn't completely dry up and leave you stuck without, and then just kind of set it on the stand, on your instrument stand ideally, so it sits up straight, and just leave it overnight so that the cork has a chance to kind of, because cork is a very soft material, so it will, you know, kind of form around the shape and be a lot easier to get on and off. And I noticed that when I left it on overnight, and with the case of the E-flat clarinet, I even left on an additional day, the pieces move so nicely, and I don't have to struggle to get them on and off so much. But however, with the extension piece, I still have quite a bit of trouble getting it onto the body. There's a couple of reasons I have thought for why that is, and if I take off the bell real quick, I can kind of show off my theories here. I think with the extension piece versus, with this body piece, like you can even see like it doesn't go on, so I feel like this is a little too small for the actual tenon itself. Just, it's not like the fault of like the piece, it's just a little small for this instrument, which is probably not that well proportioned. And as long as I put an extra cork grease, so I can eventually slide it on, but I dare not try to get it out all the way, because I feel like where it stops is actually shorter than the instrument itself, so I feel like if I try to put it on all the way, I'm gonna break something. So a little cork will be showing when I put it on, but that doesn't seem to, I don't think that affects it too much. The bell section I have much less trouble with. Like even now I can slip it on, and it too will not go on all the way. Like this is as far as it will go, because I just think there's no room left, but that's not too big of a deal. But you never want to force anything. I just feel like the depth of, and this is the fault of the bell this time, the depth of the tenon in the bell is shorter than the cork, than the tenon socket on the extension piece. Another reason I feel like I have trouble with this is because this extension piece is made out of actual wood. It's made out of black wood. You can see that it's real wood even when you go inside, which the light's not helping me very much, but it is made out of real wood. It's made out of real wood. You can even feel it's not like a plasticky. But so wood has a tendency to swell within changes to humidity and such, and temperature. So I don't know where this came from, but I live in Florida, so it's extremely humid. So I think wherever it came from was a lot less humid than here. So I think this has swollen slightly, making it even more difficult to put on. So I think there might be a period of adjustment where it gets used to the humid air where I live, but that's just a theory. I don't know, that could be, but I think more so that it's just not, it doesn't fit this instrument very well. But it will go on, and you'll see in a second that it does, how it affects the instrument as a whole. Focus. There it goes. Alright guys, so here I am to do the intonation check of the instrument. I have the tuner set up on the camera so you can see. I'm not going to do this as smoothly as I did for the Eb Clarinet, because the notes in general are a lot more difficult to come out, so I want to make sure that they actually get a good reading without killing your ears. I might even jump around if I play some bad notes just to save your ears, because E-flat clarinet, even on good instruments, will have intonation issues and will be just difficult to play, just like piccolo versus flute. As a flute player, I know the struggles of playing piccolo, so this is very much in the same vein here. So if I cut around and stuff, that's why. I don't want to torture you guys with really bad notes and stuff. But okay, so this right now I don't have the extension piece on the instrument. It's just the instrument put together without any adjustments for tuning, just to see how the instrument is in tune with itself in general. So let's start at the bottom. The bottom written note on a E-flat clarinet is an E. So it'll come out a minor third above, which is a G. So you'll see G on the screen when I play E, which is the lowest note. So let's go one at a time here. Alright, so just the low range you can see is quite sharp. So you would probably think to pull out, your mouthpiece and barrel and such to make it a little flatter. But let's keep going. The next we're going to do the throat tones next, just the G, G sharp, A, and A sharp, just to see how those are. they're very open, so we can expect to have some problems with them. So let's see. So we can see, yeah, they're really not good at all. The open G, very sharp. G sharp, extremely sharp, that it's not even showing up as a B as it should. A, kind of all over the place, and B flat. Also very sharp. So things you can do here is you can try closing some tone holes, and that'll, you know, without pressing the thumb, because that'll bring you to the lower octave. Like if you, I think. It did. So at the end there, it sounded a lot more in tune, and the tuner said so. It was on a B flat there. So that's a lot of E flat clarinet is experimenting with, you know, alternate fingerings to suit how your instrument responds in certain keys. I mean, certain ranges, registers. Oh my god, I can't speak today. Certain registers. And in the case of the throat tones, they're quite sharp on this instrument. So let's move on to the clarion register and see how that goes. Alright, so we can see, again, very sharp. So I think if you were to play this instrument without an extension piece or doing anything else to it, you would definitely want to pull out to make it a little more in tune. Now the issue comes when we get to the lower altissimo register, starting on the C sharp, which will come out as an E. One note I should make about the E flat clarinet, and it's something I just realized that I should have mentioned and probably should be doing right now, is that you really want a lot of breath support, especially in the lower altissimo register, or else the notes just won't be supported at all. Just to keep that in mind. Maybe people around you won't like what they're hearing, but if you want to practice the E flat clarinet well, you've got to use the breath support. Okay guys, I've come to the conclusion that this lower altissimo register does not want to work at all. I'll just say that when it wants to function, it comes out extremely flat, as I think is most often the case. So I'm not going to keep trying. Just know that the higher notes do come out extremely flat. Okay guys, now I have the extension piece on. As I said, you're going to see a little bit of cork, because you know, you don't want to really force this on too far, or else you'll have problems, and you don't want those problems. So let's see how the extension piece affects the intonation of the instrument, if at all. Oh, it just kind of turned off on me. Cool. I was using that, but thanks. So as we can see, still quite sharp. So ideally, you would pull out the mouthpiece and barrel, but for this comparison, I'm keeping the instrument the same, just for comparative purposes. Alright, so let's see if we do the throat tones, if anything happens. So again, very sharp. Again, you would probably pull out to actually tune the instrument properly. But yeah, just pretty much the same. Let's keep going to the clarinet and see if anything happens. Okay, I'll stop there. But yeah, you can see a big difference with the higher notes. They actually come out a lot better. I feel like the extension piece maybe allows the instrument to, vent a little better, and it makes it easier to come out. Now, those notes are still not great, but what I was going to mention, but couldn't really because without the extension piece, this instrument did not want to speak in that lower altissimo register. So we have notes like D. It's sort of there, but with the normal fingering, it's kind of not good. But there is an alternate fingering where if you just use the upper octave key and just kind of play with the overtones, and if you had tune the instrument, you would probably be right just about on the mark. And it speaks so much easier than the standard fingering for some reason. It's very, very unstable. And there's a few more notes you can play with this. If you do the octave key and the G sharp key, you can get D sharp. And again, if you had tuned the instrument, it would probably not be as sharp. And if you finger a throat A and play the overtone on that, you'll get an E. That one's a little flat, but it's still better than trying to use standard fingering. And playing an open throat B flat will get you the next note up, which is F. It's a little harder though. You really gotta, use your jaw muscles and work that one out. But so sorry that didn't sound too good. But you do have options. There's a whole bunch of resources online you can find for alternate E-flat clarinet fingerings. I haven't gotten to play with all of them yet, but maybe some of them work for this instrument, and I guess we'd have to see. So that's the intonation check. So the first playing sample I have here is the solo in Maurice Ravel's Bolero. The E-flat clarinet comes in right after 3, and you can see at the beginning of the page the cue for the bassoon solo, and then it's marked solo right at the beginning. Interestingly, this part actually is labeled as piccolo clarinet, or small clarinet in French, petite clarinet. But yeah, so this is a pretty well-known thing for the E-flat clarinet. It's a bit unusual in its orchestration because, as I said earlier, usually E-flat clarinet will get like high registered, kind of sharp, bright lines that kind of stick out from the rest. And this is a little different because it's a lot more lyrical in nature. It's just, this is a very unusual piece in that Ravel was kind of just playing with tone colors and seeing how different instruments worked with each other and such. And, it kind of just works here. So I will be playing it first without the extension piece and then with the extension piece, so you can kind of hear the difference. I haven't actually listened to them side by side, so as of recording this, I don't actually know if it sounds any better or worse, but I'll let you be the judge. And as we did discover in the intonation check, that the throat tones on this instrument are very, very off. And on the fourth line from the top, you can see we do get into some throat tone A's and G's and such, and they're very noticeable here, so I'd like to point that out before you listen. For the second playing sample, I have the E-flat clarinet solo from the fifth movement of Hector Berlioz's Symphonie Fantastique. In this movement, the main character of the story being told goes to hell, and the theme that represents the young woman he was in love with is now played by the E-flat clarinet. Instead of being lush and romantic, now it's kind of impish and corrupted and very much in the character of the E-flat clarinet that I was talking about earlier. So when you normally listen to this being played, it's very fun and playful, and it's nice to listen to. But I played a little under tempo because I'm not a clarinetist, so to get this recording, I had to play a little slower just to make sure all the notes were there. But it's just so you can get a feel for what it sounds like. But I highly encourage you to go listen to a recording of this being played on YouTube, so you can kind of hear it in the actual context. But I think my playing gives you a good enough idea of, the tone qualities and the colors that Berlioz was trying to write with the E-flat clarinet. And once again, I play it first without the extension piece, and then I play it with the extension piece, so you can make the call if it's any better or worse one way or the other. So before I share my final thoughts on the Berkeley Winds E-flat clarinet, and by the way, I should mention that I'm not entirely sure what the name of the company actually is. Sometimes I see it as Berkeley Winds as 2 words, sometimes I see it as 1 word, sometimes I see it just Berkeley. Like, I think the actual page for this instrument just said the Berkeley E-flat clarinet. I'm not sure, but just so you know, those are all the same thing. They're the same people. But before I share my final thoughts, I want to mention that I did mention in the unboxing video that people sometimes use B-flat reeds on E-flat clarinets, and that you would have to cut them off or something to make them fit properly. I don't know, like, why, but I for some reason, they do seem to fit on this, even with the barrel. You can see that it's not like running into any problems here. I don't know if maybe the mouthpiece, the shape of the mouthpiece just complements this barrel well, or if this barrel is really unusual. But the B-flat reed does seem to fit on there, and you can see that it's a little longer than the mouthpiece is itself. So I don't know. I haven't really experimented too much with this, but it might be worth checking out if you do this at home. See if it works out better for you. I might do the same at some point. That way I don't only have to buy B-flat reeds. But just thought I'd mention that little fact that the B-flat reeds do seem to fit on this instrument. So my final thoughts on this instrument, well, I was so happy with the Berkeley Winds A clarinet that I thought I'd check this out. Overall, I think comparatively, it's a bit of a disappointment. It doesn't seem to work as well as I had hoped it would. Now, I mean, is it terrible for an E-flat clarinet, considering how difficult playing one is? Probably not. And for $199, you could own this instrument, and you might need to work with it a little bit. It might need some adjustment. You might need to take it into, you might need to have somebody who's good with clarinets look at it, make sure everything's in good condition. Maybe I just got lucky with the A clarinet, I don't know. But I'd say if you want an E-flat clarinet just to play around with and just, you know, to kind of have one and have some fun with, I'd say it's an okay thing to get. If you want one for playing in more formal settings to actually play, you probably might want to look elsewhere, or get this one really looked at and fine-tuned. And that's just my opinion. I do think the extension piece does help it a little bit. It allows the upper notes to speak a little better. It's just from my experience in having played with it a little bit. Does it completely fix the instrument? No, and I don't think it's meant to. But I do think it improves it slightly, especially in the upper register, where you would most likely be playing this instrument anyway. So even though the low notes are really sharp, you would lip those down or tune the instrument as such, and focus most of your attention on the upper notes, like I said, which is where you would see the E-flat clarinet written for anyway. So, in conclusion, I give it, I'd say a B-. It's something that you could probably use and, you know, play around with just to have some fun, but for actual professional settings, this is definitely not something I recommend, nor did I think it would be. I just thought, after being really impressed with the A clarinet, I would probably be quite as impressed with this too. There are other Chinese-made E-flat clarinets on the market. I think there's one by Prestige. Maybe eventually someday I'll look at that and see how the two compare, but for now, this is what I have. So, hopefully you enjoyed the review. If you want to get one of these for yourself, I will put the link to that in the description. Like I said, I don't discourage people from buying it. I just discourage people from buying it and expecting a professional quality instrument or something similar, because you won't get that, I don't think, unless just I got unlucky and mine just had some problems with it. So like I said, I'll link to that in the description. I'll also post a link to where I got the Clark W. Forbes extension piece, in case you want one of those as well. Even if you have another E-flat clarinet and you would like one of those too, I think it's a good idea. So like I said, this was $199. I highly recommend you get your own mouthpiece from any brand, really, Yamaha, whatever you want. You can get a more expensive one if that's what you're into. You can get a ligature as well, because I would not use the mouthpiece with the instrument, just in general. That's what I would say. And if you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up. It lets me know that you like what I'm doing. Please leave a comment down below with any comments or questions. You can reach out to me on Twitter or Telegram at SkylarSeverico. I will put that name in the description box. And if you'd like to see more, I am willing to accept donations. I will put my PayPal in the description below as well. You don't have to donate, but if you have some extra cash and would like to help fund me to get more instruments, to do more reviews and more unboxings, and you know, things like, and make more content in general, please do. It's more than welcome and more than appreciated. So thanks for watching. Please come back for next time on the TMP, the musical puppy, as I do something else. I don't know what that's going to be yet, but it should be good. And as usual, I have other videos going on too. I have currently Let's Play of Pokemon Coliseum going on, so be sure to check that out if you're into video games at all. And I'll see you next time.